Imagine you're hopelessly in love, but the whole world is against you. You're on the run, branded as public enemies. What do? Do you surrender? Do you part ways to save yourselves? Or do you make a promise, a pact written in blood, to face whatever comes together? This is the story of Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow, a tale of love, crime, and a final, brutal showdown. It's not just about the robberies. It's about a bond so strong they chose death over separation. Bonnie and Clyde. Their names are legendary, synonymous with the romance of the open road and the thrill of rebellion. But beneath the myth was a harsh reality. By early 1934, their world was shrinking. The Barrow Gang, once a formidable group, was down to just its 2 core members. Their faces were plastered on every post office wall, and the combined forces of the FBI and police from multiple states were closing in. A relentless hunting party determined to end their reign of terror. They were tired, wounded, and utterly alone, except for each other. It was in this desperate final chapter that their love story truly solidified. They knew the end was near. There was no escape, no happy ending waiting for them over the horizon. Clyde, who had once dreamed of a life of music, and Bonnie, who had fantasized about being a poet or a movie star, were now trapped in a life they had created. It was during these last few months, driving endless miles on dusty, but if they couldn't live together, they would die together. It wasn't a morbid death wish, but a profound declaration of their commitment. Separation was a fate worse than death. This promise became their guiding principle, the final piece of their tragic identity. The law wasn't just getting closer, they were getting smarter. The man tasked with bringing them down was a legendary Texas Ranger named Frank Hammer. Hammer was old school, a tough, quiet lawman who understood the criminal mind. He didn't chase them frantically. He studied them. He learned their habits, their roots, and most importantly, their connections. Hammer knew that Bonnie and Clyde relied on a network of family and friends for shelter, food, and information. He realized that the key to catching them wasn't to outrun them, but to predict their next move. Hammer assembled a posse of 6 lawmen, a hand-picked team from Texas and Louisiana. They were armed to the teeth, not with pistols, but with automatic rifles and shotguns. They weren't planning an arrest. They were planning an annihilation. Public opinion had turned sharply against the pair after they murdered 2 young highway patrolmen at Grapevine, Texas, on Easter Sunday. The public, once titillated by their exploits, now demanded blood. Hammer and his men were more than willing to deliver. They tracked the couple relentlessly, their net tightening with each passing day. The romanticized image of the carefree outlaws was about to collide with the brutal reality of organized law enforcement. While the lawmen were hunting them from the outside, an even more dangerous threat was emerging from within their own circle. Betrayal. The Barrow Gang had always relied on the loyalty of their associates. But loyalty has a price. The key to the final trap was a man named Henry Methvin, a recent addition to the gang. Methvin and his family were known to shelter Bonnie and Clyde. After a shootout in which Methven killed another police officer, the authorities saw an opportunity. They cornered Henry's father, Ivan Methven, and made him an offer he could unrefuse: a full pardon for his son, in exchange for setting a trap for Bonnie and Clyde. Ivan Methven agreed. He told Hamasbasi that Bonnie and Clyde were planning to visit his home in Louisiana. This was the break Hammer had been waiting for. The plan was simple and ruthless. Ivan would park his truck on the side of a rural road, pretending it had a flat tire. He knew Clyde would stop to help a friend's father. It was a calculated betrayal, using Clyde's own code of loyalty against him. The stage was set. The friends Bonnie and Clyde had trusted were now the architects of their demise, luring them into a kill zone from which there would be no escape. As the final days ticked down, a sense of doom seemed to settle over Bonnie. She was a writer at heart, and she turned to poetry to express her deepest fears and premonitions. Tucked away in her things was a poem she had been working on, a piece she titled The Story of Bonnie and Clyde. It wasn't a glorious ballad of their adventures. It was a somber, realistic prophecy of their own. She wrote about their life on the run, the constant fear, and the public's perception of them as cold-blooded killers. But the most haunting part of the poem was its conclusion. She wrote, "Someday they'll go down together, and they'll bury them side by side. To a few it LB griftu, de lo a relief, but it esta for Bonnie and Clyde. It's an incredibly powerful and self-aware piece of writing." She knew exactly how their story would end. There was no illusion of making it out alive. The poem was her final will and testament, a message to the world, and perhaps a final loving tribute to the pact she had made with Clyde. She gave a copy to her mother, a final goodbye from a daughter who knew she would never be coming home. May 23rd, 1934. The morning was hot and humid in Bienville Parish, Louisiana. Hammer's 6-man posse lay hidden in the bushes along a quiet country road, a spot chosen by Ivan Meth. They had been waiting for 2 days. Just after Sambilan AM, they heard the telltale sound of a Ford V8 engine approaching at high speed. It was Clyde's car, just as planned. Ivan Methven's truck was parked on the side of the road. Clyde, true to his character, slowed down to help. He was wearing a new suit, and Bonnie was eating a sandwich in the passenger seat. The moment the car slowed, the posse opened fire. There was no warning, no call to surrender. One of the Lomain Prentice Oakley fired the first 2 shots from his automatic rifle, hitting Clyde in the head and killing him instantly. The car, out of control, slowly rolled forward as the posse unleashed a hurricane of bullets. They fired over 130 rounds into the vehicle. The sound was deafening, a relentless barrage that tore through metal, glass, and flesh. Bonnie screamed as the bullets riddled her body. When the guns finally fell silent, the car was a smoking wreck, more holes than metal. Inside, the scene was horrific. Bonnie and Clyde had fulfilled their promise. They had died together in a hail of gunfire betrayed by a friend and executed by the law. Their bodies were so mangled that the Undertaker had difficulty embalming them. Their bloody, bullet-ridden car, a symbol of their life and death, became a macabre tourist attraction. Bonnie's final poem had come true. To the law, it was a relief. To their families, it was immense grief. Bonnie's mother had fought to have them buried side by side, as Bonnie had wished, but the Parker family refused. Bonnie was buried in one Dallas cemetery, and Clyde in another, separated in death as they had refused to be in life. But their legend, that was just beginning. The story of their love, their crimes, and their violent end became an American myth, a dark romance that continues to fascinate us to this day. They were criminals, yes, but they were also two people who loved each other so fiercely. They chose a shared death over a separate life, a promise written and sealed in blood. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this dive into history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more stories.